Hello, everybody. Welcome to this presentation of the American Topical Association. Today we are doing a program on expand your collection with poster stamps. And this is being presented by one of our best presenters, Dr. Michele Bresso. She is a retired college professor and discovered poster stamps value in her topical collections. She will share how to use them, find them, and make them your own. And with that, Michele, please go ahead.
Very good. Okay. Well, thank you all for being here, and I appreciate the time you are willing to give this evening to hear this presentation. I'm going to take a second here to share my screen. Now, I am going to talk about poster stamps, and I want to start by saying that I'm not an expert, but I have learned some things along the way, and I will share what I have learned, and I hope that I will learn from you by the end of the evening as well. So we're going to talk about expanding our collections with poster stamps. And I want to start by giving you some context. I don't collect poster stamps. I collect a lot of different topics, but my primary topic is typewriters on stamps. I love typewriters. Now, here's the thing about typewriters on stamps. They don't make a lot of those. This happens to be one of my newest. This is from Serbia. It was issued last year to celebrate the 80th anniversary of their newspaper. And I find that there are lots of, when typewriter stamps appear, it's usually in association with journalism or an author, for example. Another recent gift I received from my friend Alistair, who's also here in the audience today. New Zealand issued a series of stamps with authors, and one of them included this author with her typewriter, and he made sure that I got a copy of the stamps. And so there aren't a lot of typewriter stamps. And so if you're like me, and you've gotten to that point in your collection where you're searching more and finding less, you've got all the low-hanging fruit, you've got some of the hard-to-get ones, there's not much left out there, so finding stamps to add to your collection is few and far between. Well, one day I came across a poster stamp, and it had this cool typewriter on it, and I'm thinking, well, okay, it's not postage, it's not really a stamp, but it's got a typewriter. So I decided I would buy it. I mean, how many of those can there be, right? And later I found another one. Awesome. So I bought it. And then another one. And now I have over 225 poster stamps in to my typewriter collection. Yes, 225 plus poster stamps, all that show or are related to typewriters. Who knew? So with every find, it's kind of the joy of the new discovery all over again, and it has been great. And it's also spawned new directions in my philatelic collecting. So that is what started this experience for me. So tonight, I'm going to discuss some of the reasons that you might want to collect or add poster stamps to your collection. We're going to define what a poster stamp is. We're going to talk about its origins. Where did they come from? Why did they get started? And who are some of the people behind the art that we see? Then we're going to talk about the purpose of different types of poster stamps, and there are several, and they fall into categories that you'll begin to recognize. And finally, we'll wrap up by talking about how we can incorporate poster stamps in our collection, different ways to consider making that addition. So, I wanted to give you some reasons to add poster stamps to your collection, and honestly, there are many, many. But here are three really big ones. First of all, poster stamps are topical. Oh my gosh. Whatever topic you collect, there has got to be a poster stamp that either depicts your topic or is related to your topic. Look at this stamp on the left. Talk about topics all in one poster stamp. This shows different forms of transportation: air, train, car, infrastructure. Boy, whatever you collect related to transportation, it's almost all in that one poster stamp. Another reason to collect is that the art is compelling. Look at this second one. Uh, this is a stamp, and there will be many I'll point out along the way, where it isn't related to anything I collect, but it was so beautiful. I just decided to buy it. I don't know, maybe I'll start some kind of collection around it, or I'll find another way to use it. I certainly did tonight, didn't I? But it's beautiful, and poster stamps, some of them are quite compelling. And then finally, they're affordable. You know, you can pick up poster stamps for just $1 or $2. Now, I don't want to give you the wrong impression. They aren't all affordable. I've spent $1 on a poster stamp. I've spent $100 on a poster stamp, and lots in between. But poster stamps, like much of philately, depend on those same tenets when we talk about price: scarcity, condition, and then demand. Sorry, that is not a child. That is my cat who wants attention. I don't really have a way to stop that. So we will continue. So these are three very important reasons for adding poster stamps to your collection. Maybe the fourth one that isn't on here is they're just fun. So what is it? What is a poster stamp? Well, it's a stamp and not. Take a look at this one that's right here. It looks like a stamp. At quick glance, you'd think that that was a lovely postage stamp, but it's a poster stamp. It's an advertising piece by stationers. Eaton's is promoting their fine letter writing papers. And poster stamps are essentially broken up into three categories. I'll talk about the first two briefly and spend most of our time on that third category. So those three categories are revenues, locals, and cinderellas. So here's an example of a revenue stamp that's in my collection, and honestly, I don't really know why I own this one, except that I like it. And I was thinking about doing something related to Canada, and I really liked this particular one from 1903. Revenues are printed by a national government, and their purpose is to facilitate tax collection. And they put the stamps on an invoice or on the actual item, and they collect a tax related to that item. In this particular case, this 1903 revenue collects a tax related to the Yukon Territorial Court. Here are a couple examples of revenue stamps in some collections that I have. This first one is from 1942. This is a dues paying, this is a stamp a dues paying member of the National Socialist Flyers Corps would have received upon paying, or would have received a booklet of stamps so that they could pay their dues in this paramilitary organization. It was really designed to generate interest in flying, either among young people who didn't know anything about flying but wanted to be pilots, or older people who either had pilot's experience or wanted to have some, because they were generating and recruiting people in the Nazi effort to build the Luftwaffe. And so this poster stamp is actually a revenue to help facilitate the collection of dues for that organization. On the right-hand side is a revenue stamp from Maine, and it's on about Maine's beer tax. This is a stamp for tax on 1 pint of beer. I have a collection of Maine on stamps. Not super active, but I love Maine. What a beautiful state. And so I've started collecting a few things related to Maine. and this revenue stamp is one of them. The second category that I mentioned is local posts. These are printed by regional groups, not governments, and they pay for deliveries of mail. They're sometimes called carriage labels. And that mail is usually having to be delivered under special circumstances because the place the mail is going to is hard to get to, and the regular postal service won't reach it. So locals have found a way to get mail there, but that has an expense. Sometimes it's less formal than that. This particular stamp, the Shrub Oak local post in New York, was really a gentleman and his dog, Alfie, who delivered mail around the neighborhood, and he created a couple of stamps. And I have both of them, and it was just kind of a fun thing. But here are a couple of three other examples of local post. On the left, Jethu Island is one of the Channel Islands near Guernsey in the UK. And that island issued stamps between the 1950s and 60s, mid-60s, until the island closed to the public in 1970, after which it stopped making stamps. In the upper right-hand corner is Rattlesnake Island local post. Rattlesnake Island is in Lake Erie, and it is the only USPS authorized local post. Now, it generated this revenue to help offset the cost of gas for the triplane that would bring mail from the mainland onto Rattlesnake Island. And then it ceased for a while because the person who had been running it all passed away. And there was this hiatus of several years. And then someone else kind of took it up. And some more stamps were produced through 2024. But their website hasn't, I don't see anything new since then. So I'm not sure if it's still in operation, although there are many stamps in the Rattlesnake Island category to collect. The one on the bottom, Staffa, is an island off the coast of Scotland, and it's been issuing poster stamps or labels since 1969. This one was part of I have a collection of turkeys on stamps, and that's why I bought this one. So that third category that we'll spend most of our time talking about this evening are also called cinderellas. And they're stamps that were printed by private companies, nonprofit organizations, and other kinds of organizations, really starting in the late 1800s and predominantly in Germany. So a lot of the very earliest ones are German. This particular one is another one where I just couldn't say no. How beautiful is this poster stamp? The expressive faces on the characters, the exuberant feeling from this stamp, the vibrant colors, and the interesting harmonica. It's Honer, of course, is a famous harmonica maker. A friend of mine who bought this stamp, he and I kind of fought for it for a little bit, and I let him have it. And after he moved out of the country, he sent me his Honer harmonica. In the meantime, I had picked up another one of these poster stamps to add to my own collection. So where did they come from? Well, as I said, Germany is where they started. It was a way to advertise and get the word out, because we must realize that there were limited avenues for communication, especially commercial communication and advertising. What newspapers there were they weren't very visually interesting. And when you see the vibrant color of a poster stamp, well, they grab attention. And that was their purpose, was to get a potential customer's attention and get them interested in the product, the event, or whatever it was that poster stamp was professing. Here is a particular example of why the term poster stamp came into being. They were considered mini posters. And in fact, they were mini posters. On the right, you see an actual poster. This was created by artist Adolfo de Carolus. for the 1911 Turin International World's Fair in Italy. He created that beautiful poster, and then the event organizers also made this poster stamp of his poster to promote their event. Now, like many of the artists that created poster stamps, Carolus was a bona fide artist, an Italian painter and illustrator who studied fine art, and he focused on murals, interior design, wood engravings, illustration, and photography eventually. Uh, but he was very well known, especially for his wonderful beaux arts and beautiful posters. And so Art Nouveau, that in that era. So he really loved creating these vivid images. And so the poster stamps, some of the poster stamps were based on his artwork. Here is the reason I own that particular poster stamp. This is an example of a one-page exhibit that I created for ATA's annual My One-Page Exhibit program. I wanted to tell about the Olivetti Typewriter Company of Italy. And to tell that story, I purchased that poster stamp that promoted the Turin International Fair. And the reason is, at that event, in that exposition, Olivetti displayed for the first time to the public its Model 1 typewriter. And so to be able to tell that story and to illustrate that story with a stamp, I purchased that poster stamp to represent that part of the story. Here's a second example, and I'm only going to do two examples of artists, where the original poster on the right and the poster stamp to its left. This poster is entitled St. Moritz Winter Bunny, and the artist Alex Walter Digelman created the art, and the poster stamp then became an offshoot of his work. He was born in 1902 and passed away in 1987. He was a Swiss graphic artist and book designer, and he studied both in Paris and in Leipzig. And he was known especially for his sports illustrations, and a lot of his posters around St. Moritz, for example, show skiers shushing on the slopes and all sorts of things. But he also did this thing with that turn of phrase, snow bunny or ski bunny, and put actual bunnies in the artwork. And it was just, I felt it was a vibrant and interesting piece. But frankly, has made me a lot more interested in the artist, because it was someone whose work I was not familiar with until the poster stamp. There are many more artists, too many to talk about tonight. What I'm showing you on the right here is a picture of the cover of one of several books written by Charles Kittle. Kittle was a British collector of poster stamps, one of the top collectors in this field. And he authored many, many books and catalogs by subject for different poster stamps. Sadly, not one about typewriters. He passed away just a couple of years ago, but at the time he had over 250,000 poster stamps in his collection, and he bequeathed them all to the Royal Philatelic Society. I was communicating and had been communicating with his daughter, Claire, and she was selling some of his duplicates. And so I picked up some of those as well as some of his books from her. And it was in his book, The American Story, which was all about American poster stamps printed in America and created for American audiences, that he talked about why that term Cinderella came around. Poster stamps were rather looked down upon by real stamp collectors, real philatelists. And so, like that fairy tale character Cinderella, poster stamps were not welcome at the ball. And a group took up that name and kind of championed them, and the term Cinderella was born. So now let's take a look at some of the purposes of poster stamps. We've got that history. We understand how this got started, how they were a communication device to build interest and generate sales and other things. Let's talk about some of the different categories that we'll see poster stamps. And one of the predominant ones is advertising. This era was limited in terms of the ways that advertising could happen. And certainly there was no television, there was no internet, there were no, color magazines, this kind of thing. The color on these stamps grabbed attention. And manufacturers who paid to have them printed loved that aspect of them. I bought these because I just love the art. It's kind of quirky. These poster stamps say that these Volcott waste baskets are guaranteed to last 5 years. And what manager doesn't want office equipment that they can count on? So here were these poster stamps, and I love it because what the manufacturers did is they'd have them printed up. They would use them on all their correspondence, every invoice that they sent out, every message to customers or to their vendors would include a poster stamp on the envelope or inside. They were portable. That was another benefit of poster stamps. Manufacturers could give them to their retail sellers to give away to customers who bought their products. And that it's like word of mouth. It would generate the promotion. Now, just like the very first stamp that was created, the penny black, once they started appearing on the scene, people started collecting them. And that's what happened to poster stamps as well. And pretty soon, people were saving them and trading them. Here are some other examples, just a few of advertising poster stamps in my collection. On the left, this particular stamp from Cottrell and Leonard from 1913, a company in New York, printed a series of poster stamps depicting different products they offered for sale, and caps and gowns were one of those or two of those products. The next one is an advertisement for stockings. This fit nicely into my knitting on stamps collection. Here's this lady knitting this nice stocking. Who doesn't like chocolate? One of my favorite vegetables. And Sorority chocolates, since 1913 in Germany, produced this wonderful advertising poster stamp, probably for Easter time, with the bunny and the chocolate eggs. Love it. And here's one from my typewriter collection of a Williams typewriter. Now you'll notice that the typewriter is not Italian, but the rest of the poster stamp is. And that speaks to the global nature of marketing products and the fact that poster stamps could allow that, once again, portability to get images of the product to other places where people might be interested in purchasing. Now, another purpose of poster stamps was event promotion. Here's an example of a promotion for the National Philatelic Week in 1936. Wouldn't this be an interesting part of your collection if you collected stamps on stamps? Because here are a wonderful series of stamps on this poster stamp. And the whole idea was to generate interest in the event, create some buzz, word of mouth, and get people talking and sharing about the event so that it would generate interest and attendance. Here are a few other examples of event promotion in my collection. On the left, you see the 1939 World's Fair, but from a different perspective. This poster stamp was created by the Suffolk County Association of Long Island, New York, to share about their part in this wonderful World's Fair. And they wanted everybody to know that they were a big part of it too. It wasn't all about New York City, for example. The second one is from 1900, another one in my main collection, about promoting Old Home Week, which is a very New England celebration that happens about once a decade and celebrates the return to one's hometown. And the whole idea is during Old Home Week, you come back home, you reconnect with family, friends, and the places that you grew up around. It's really a lovely idea, actually. And so this stamp helped promote Old Home Week in 1900 in Maine. On the top, of course, ATA has its place in poster stamps. Uh, this is for Topex of 1968. That was before we were subsumed under the larger Great American Stamp Show, which is now our annual show. But I am really proud to say that ATA continues to create poster stamps with a special issue every year. And I expect there to be, I'm hoping there will be another one with this year's Great American Stamp Show, because it carries on that tradition of stamps related to an interesting event. And finally, at the bottom, this is a poster stamp for the National Ice Cream Expo that was in 1922, held in Cleveland. And I have a small collection of ice cream on stamps because next to chocolate, ice cream is my next favorite food group. Now, here is another category of a purpose of poster stamps, and that is charity, whether that was fundraising or generating action to benefit others. This particular mini sheet is generated by the Red Cross of Poland in 1945, and it was serving to help raise funds and awareness for the post-World War II Relief Fund. Those efforts, of course, very important to help people recover from the war. There were some other examples here of charity poster stamps. This 1972 issue about the prevention of cruelty to animals. Thank you, Dexter. See, Dexter likes that one the best. And that's in my Cats on Stamps collection. Next to it is a stamp about fighting polio in children. This is a Danish stamp from 1953. And then this one on the right is actually quite a large poster stamp from the National Audubon Society from 1994. And this was the center stamp of a mini sheet that was about 5 inches wide and 3 inches tall, with 5 different poster stamps depicting beautiful birds and generating interest and hopefully funds for the National Audubon Society. As a matter of fact, they would generally send out these stamps in an envelope to lots and lots of people and ask for a donation in lieu of keeping the stamp, the set of stamps. And so it was one way to raise funds. Another purpose of poster stamps is political. I have a small collection of Ronald Reagan on stamps that was started essentially because Ronald Reagan and my daughter have the same birthday, February 6th. And so I started collecting Ronald Reagan on stamps and covers, and came across this 1965 campaign poster stamp that was the predecessor for his winning the election for governor in California the following year. Here are some other rather interesting examples of political speech on poster stamps. The one in the top left, Speak Up for Democracy, comes from a collection that I created for around Uncle Sam on stamps. The one on the top right is political commentary. This is from last year, and I bought it because it's associated with Mad Magazine. It says, "Don't waste your vote on a Republican or a Democrat. Waste it by voting for Alfred E. Neuman for president." And of course, Alfred E. Neuman, the famous character from Mad Magazine. I grew up reading that comic and magazine series, and so I just couldn't resist buying this particular stamp. And then at the bottom, you see 5 of a 10 stamp mini sheet, all 10 different images of scenes related to World War II that generated interest in and support for the troops, the US troops in World War II. And finally, a final purpose is a souvenir. Poster stamps could be souvenirs, and I bought this one just, well, I was buying some poster stamps because I became very interested in die-cut poster stamps. Poster stamps that instead of being rectangles, squares, triangles, were shaped like the object they depicted. And this one, because I'm from California originally, now residing in Tennessee, this one caught my interest because I love this whole idea of celebrating the centennial. So in 1939, they created this die-cut poster stamp to celebrate that in the capital city of Sacramento. Here's one other example of a souvenir in my collection, and this is a postal card canceled in 1900 at the Paris Exposition, 1900 Paris Exposition. Now that's the World's Fair that presented the very first escalator. No one had ever seen an escalator before, but they had it available in Paris. Then there were also featured at that fair 150 different Rodin statues and 57 million visitors to the fair. And of course, fair organizers hoped that these poster stamps that you see on the front and back covers of this postcard would generate interest for people to send to their friends. You pick up a postal card, you affix some of these beautiful stamps, and you send it to yourself. You send it to your friends to promote the fair, but of course, many people made sure to send one to themselves to keep as a souvenir of the event. So you can see that there were all of these different ways that poster stamps fit into various needs of organizations, whether it was governments, businesses, nonprofit organizations, etc. They became a very important part of a way to communicate and create interest. So what do we do with all these tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of poster stamps that are out there floating around? Well, there are some different ways that you can consider adding them, incorporating them into your collection. One way is to expand the number of on-topic stamps in your collection. And 3 of the 4 of these are good illustrations of that. The Cats on Stamps collection I mentioned earlier. Here's a wonderful poster stamp that features a cat, and I just thought it was beautiful, so I added it in. This second one that you see, the yellow, bright and vibrant, is actually a promotion of a stamp exhibit, but that stamp exhibit takes place in Puerto, Mexico, known as the turkey capital of the world. And so there's this turkey on that poster stamp, and that's why I bought it. This doesn't show knitting on the stamp, this third one, but I liked it because it was for beehive knitting wool, and I love that image of the beehive. I thought that was a very beautiful art stamp. So I added that to my knitting collection. And finally, this is another one I picked up. This was a duplicate from Charles Kittle's collection about the Boston Bees, a baseball team training in Florida. There aren't many poster stamps on the baseball topic, and I was really excited to get this one. So what's another way that you can consider poster stamps in your collection? Well, if you want to move from strictly topical to thematic collecting, poster stamps can help you do that. Now, what's thematic versus topical? Topical means I collect typewriters and there's a typewriter on the stamp. I'm talking about typewriters, that's all I'm talking about. Thematic tells the story of the typewriter. So a stamp that features someone who invented a typewriter becomes thematic. I don't see the typewriter, I see the inventor, but now I can tell the story of how that typewriter was invented and who did it and where they lived and what time era they lived in and so on. And maybe you want to expand thematically your topical collection. Poster stamps are a way to do that. So you see this first one does show the Palace of Fine Arts, and I have a small collection of Palace of Fine Arts. It happens to be a wonderful structure, really the only standing structure from the 1915 Pan Pacific Exposition in San Francisco. It is one of my favorite buildings in the world, and it's beautiful. It's breathtakingly beautiful, this structure. And so I wanted to do a one-page exhibit about the Palace of Fine Arts, and I began collecting stamps and whatever I could get my hands on. And I heard about this particular poster stamp, and my friend Ray Peterson in the audience here found it for me and sent it my way. And I was very grateful to him. But if I wanted to take a thematic leap, I could talk about, notice it says inviting you to the land of romance. What if I wanted to talk about the romantic era of arts and architecture and feature different kinds of buildings like this one? I could begin to do that with poster stamps. The second one from my main collection, you'll notice on the bottom of it, it says cruising on the Maine coast. What if my collection takes a thematic bent, not just about Maine, but about maritime history of Maine? And I could use this poster stamp to begin talking about that, or to talk about it within an era of from old to present day. And this third one, notice it's from my typewriter collection, but notice there's no typewriter on there. This herald has his trumpet out, and the banner hanging from the trumpet advertises the Standard Typewriter Company. But I could talk thematically about the way typewriters changed and caused communication to evolve. And this stamp could help me take that thematic thread about typewriters and communication. So, a couple more to go. How about injecting some creativity into your collection? Try something you haven't tried before. That's what I did with this. I know nothing about creating a cachet or garnering pictorial cancels when they are issued. And my friend Foster Miller of the American First Day Cover Association helped me, kind of walked me through the process of requesting a particular cancel. I learned that this cancel showing the QWERTY keys on the typewriter keyboard, those are the top left keys, and that QWERTY configuration is specific to America and some other countries, but not all typewriters. I wanted to have that cancel, and I wanted it to cancel typewriter stamps. So I went out and bought, I had to buy full sheets to get all of these because I couldn't buy just the stamp. To get these 4 stamps, which are the only 4 US stamps that show typewriters. I wanted them all on the cover. And I wanted a cachet, but I'm no artist. So I used one of my poster stamps you see on the bottom here. It's about 1915, this poster stamp about the Chicago Daily News. And I thought, well, that would make an interesting piece of art on my cover. And so I sent it in to Wisconsin, and I got my cover canceled, and they honored my request to tie the poster stamp to the cancel. So I was very happy to add this to my collection. This is one of a kind. Nobody else has one of these. So it was a way to inject a little creativity using poster stamps. Now, poster stamps on covers are pretty rare. I only have a couple in my typewriter collection, and this is one. This wonderful, you see on the left side, the corner card with the Stower brand and information is augmented by the poster stamp, a circular die cut stamp on the back. So I was very excited to come across this and add this one to my collection. This one cost a little bit. That Stower typewriter is there aren't many pieces out there about that, and so they're harder to come by. This is the second one in my collection. This is about 1928 is the cancel on the cover here. And this poster stamp promotes Remington portable typewriters. These were the early portables. And so I added that one to my collection too. And that's another way you could, if you wanted to narrow the focus of your poster stamp collecting, you could collect poster stamps only on cover. You can also use them creatively to start a mini collection. Sometimes, or help tell more about that collection. What started this collection for me, and this became again another one-page exhibit, was this Queen Mary cover. I've been on the Queen Mary. I've stayed on the Queen Mary when it was moored in Long Beach, California, and became a convention and hotel venue. I attended a conference held on the ship and stayed there for a few nights, and it was really fun. So I wanted to tell the story of this beautiful ship, and this wonderful poster stamp that you see on the right here in the actual exhibit, and on the left under the title in a larger format, shows Queen Mary, because I wanted to tell the story of how the ship got its name. This particular poster stamp is quite large. It's about 3 inches tall. And some poster stamps you'll discover are large scale, and that's kind of what makes them fun. So now that we know what they are and who made them and how we categorize them and how we can use them, how do we get them? Finally, tonight, I'm going to talk about a few tips I've learned in searching for poster stamps, because it can be very straightforward and not. Here's what I mean. Go to your favorite online auction house, eBay, Hipstamp, Del Comp, whatever you like, and search poster stamp. Hit the little glass, magnifying glass, and you will get thousands of hits. So clearly, you either are going to go through a lot of images and auctions, or you want to narrow the search. Here's one way that I have found to find poster stamps. I mean, you can search poster stamp typewriter. You'll come up with some, but not all poster stamps are recognized as being about typewriters. They're about typewriters for me because I collect typewriters, but for the seller, these stamps aren't about typewriters. So they may not put the word typewriter in their heading, which means I can't search for poster stamp typewriter and hit these. So I have learned to search correlated phrases that will help me find stamps that might include a typewriter. And those phrases you see at the bottom left here: office supplies, office equipment, office furniture, trade schools, repair, office equipment repair, things like that. And these mostly came up because of those results. In the top left here, you see the result of office equipment. I had to fight our vice president, Jeff Hayward, for this stamp, and eventually we each ended up with one. He wanted it because he collects desks on stamps, and this had this cool roll top desk. But look over here on the right. There's this little table. What is that on the table? Look down here. I've blown it up for you. Yep, that's a typewriter. It's a teeny tiny little typewriter. I don't care. It's a typewriter. I want it in my collection. So I picked up that particular stamp. Just opposite that expansion photo is the result of office equipment. This is an office lamp poster stamp, but it shows a woman seated at a typewriter typing by the light of the emerald light office lamp. And so what a lovely stamp this is. And it had a typewriter. Above it Well, that was just fortuitous because this doesn't have anything to do with typewriters. It's about chocolate. I wasn't searching for chocolate. I just hit it by accident. This particular manufacturer of these poster stamps made 2 versions. They were sets of images, all different ones, different kinds of scenes, and this was one of maybe 16 different scenes. And they produced one that was perfed and one non-perfed, and I have each. To its right, this was a trade school that teaches, well, what it calls machine composition. I call it typing. So by searching trade school, I hit some things that way. And the one on the right is about typewriter and office equipment repair. Now, you don't have to be in this by yourself. Besides ATA, a great partner in creating and promoting all kinds of philately, there is this organization, Poster Stamp Collectors Club. I am a member, and I've provided its website down here as a place to get more information about poster stamps and to connect with people who collect poster stamps. It's a lot of fun. And they're always welcoming not only new members, but new people to contribute by writing and sharing ideas and what have you. I'm appreciative to the Poster Stamp Collector Club who promoted this ATA presentation tonight on poster stamps. So now you've seen the look. I really appreciate your taking the time to listen in, and I will end my presentation here and turn it back over to our hosts.
Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, we did have a few questions come in. First one, Larry Bonura asked, you said there are not many typewriter stamps. Do you happen to know how many there are?
Oh boy, I should know that because I have the ATA checklist on typewriters, but I do not know off the top of my head. If you will connect with me online, I will send you that information.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, Glenn Minshall has a couple of questions out here. Do all revenue stamps qualify as poster stamps, or is it just those with certain design characteristics?
In my humble opinion, the answer is yes, they would all, they aren't postage. And that's kind of what puts them in the poster stamp category. But you know, like a lot of philately, the line can move. And so I'm a firm believer that my collection is, I collect the way I want to collect. And for example, I don't feel compelled to collect every cat stamp on the planet. There are too many. So what do? I collect only the cats that are beautiful on the stamps. If I like the look of the cat, it's in my collection. If it's an ugly cat, I don't collect it. So you get to call the shots. And I would say that if you want to consider all revenue stamps to be poster stamps, I would, then you can. And if you want to narrow that to say poster stamps are only revenue stamps that do this, great.
And with that, I wish you all a good morning or good evening, wherever you are.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle.
Bye, everybody. Come again.
Good work.
Thanks.
Thank you.
It was fun.